Howdy. Welcome to Ausgrave Royalty. I am Justin. Welcome to another incredibly self-indulgent video where you just get to listen to a white dude talk about the nonfiction he likes. Joking aside, I'm glad you're here. I recently did a video on fiction books that I like, which you can see in the previous one of the previous episodes. And you'll know from that video that I had like a 6 to 8 year-ish off and on with other jobs kind of delivery job, like delivering pizza, delivering sushi. And pros and cons to that kind of job, of course, but one of the great pros, no pun intended, is that you get to listen to a lot of great books and get paid for it while you do it. So I honestly wouldn't mind a delivery job right now, even on top of everything I'm doing, if I could find a place where didn't have to use my own car for miles. And that was the great thing about the sushi job. But haven't found one in my area. But who knows? We'll see. Job is underrated. At least it was for me. Even though it's just delivery, it's still fun. I don't know. I've never delivered like in those Amazon Prime vans before. Maybe, I don't know if those are good jobs. Anyway, I'm ranting. In this video, I'm just going to talk about just chilling with y'all about nonfiction books. I mentioned in the last episode on the fiction that I think that if you read like material books at all these days, you're kind of punk rock in 2022. None of this soft, tablety, smartphoney, digital, laptopy nonsense. But if you have the actual book, you're a legend, my friend. How many people have you even seen reading a book in public? It's so strange that it's going to become a lost art. That medium. Oh, you actually read the book. Oh, not on Kindle or whatever. And I confess, I like the audiobooks from Audible. I'm not sponsored. I wish. Some income. But yeah, I actually like the dimension of the voice that the voice actor can bring to both fiction and nonfiction. Kind of taps into that primitive oral storytelling tradition of humanity. I made that up, but maybe it is. Or maybe it's something I got used to because I had to stay sane during my shifts delivering stuff, and I sort of acclimated to it. Either way, I still have a great love for them, audiobooks. So I'm just I made some notes just about some nonfiction I like. In the fiction video, I had a couple long rants about where I'm coming from, and I'll talk about some of that here. But I didn't actually list a lot of books. Kind of slightly disappointed in that video. My camera is a strict taskmaster and ends at 30 minutes, so I have to get everything in, and I refuse to edit and reshoot and stuff like that. I got other things to do. So I get one take. Got to do it right. Content creator problems over here. But I didn't actually make time to list a bunch of specific books. I did a few, but not as many as I would like. And I didn't even finish my notes and all that. So, but the more I look back on it, I think it was actually not that bad because anybody can look up a list of things, but this is about getting to know me and where I'm coming from. And I give a few, anybody can read a list, but this is about getting to know an individual, that is to say me, the voice behind all the content I'm producing on the channel. And that's the real value, Well, that was maybe some copium there, but I think it's somewhat legitimate. So the context that I'll give for nonfiction is that I've said before on the channel, I'm like very promiscuous when it comes to ideas. Like I've done stand-up comedy, I've made electronic music, I'm learning pixel art, I'm learning Unity for game development, I know some programming, I work in tech and like database administration. Like I've worked retail, I've done a lot of things. And I have an insane, ridiculous amount of interest. Like I want to learn how to fold origami. I want to learn about permaculture. There's like soil that can clean up the oceans that someone developed. It's like a red soil in Australia, something like that. There's like a way to scrub the carbon dioxide from the air, so global warming is kind of solved. It's just, it's a government cash cow. I'm kind of cynical, so it's like the oil conspiracy. Like we'd all like have probably free energy right now if it weren't for some kind of malicious force buying up all that technology and then shutting it down to perpetuate, their monopoly on energy. I'm not like that cynical, and I don't have any direct evidence or anything, but it's just things I'm interested in. Not the conspiracy side, but the science side. Like I want to like build a custom drone and like do some drone racing. You can put on like goggles and like actually be the drone. How's that not a thing right now? Like a drone amusement park or something. They have those in Dubai, which is dope. And they also are developing flying cars. I'll try and like find a link to some below. They only fly for a few minutes, but it's like as the crow flies, right? So I don't know. That's pretty cool. And I'm just like I have this like weird interest in farming and fishing, and like because I'm so out of touch with it, with nature, in the modern, like being just a product of modernity. And I want to learn how to like grow something, and yeah, there might be a naive romance, and it's not actually working in a farm really blows. That may be the case, whatever. But I'm too much like in the modern thing. I want to like get some balance. I've never been fishing, and I have kind of a stand-up bit about this where like I've always thought of fishing as like, wait, you go somewhere and you do nothing? Who would want to do that? And now as I grow older, I'm like, wait, you go somewhere and do nothing? That sounds amazing. I want to do that. Yeah, so I've looked up like some fishing trips, and there's like some tours you can do in Louisiana. Anyway, my point in all this is like, for every interest I have, there's probably a book or two written about it. Sometime a book or a couple thousand about it. My grandpa, who was really fond of, who passed, worked for NASA, and we would talk a lot about astrophysics and stuff. So I'm interested in all that stuff, getting a telescope, doing some photography, like astrophotography. Yeah. Yeah, and just, it's like there's a bucket list of ideas that I want to explore before I die. A lot of people like have, like they're very jaded and very gray and very hollowed out, and they're spent, But I love life. Like I've been through, I would say, proportionally for me, some difficult times, especially kind of recently. but like I always love life. My problem is that I love life too much. I get spread thin, and I just I have trouble focusing my energies in one area because there's all these other areas, to explore. And in the past few years, like including this YouTube channel and in archetypal psychology, which I cover on the channel, learning the audio video, creating the scripts and the content, learning freaking Photoshop, setting up everything, the wires, it's just like I'm in a lot of I'm spread very thin, and I have like my 9 to 5. I've got family and friends. I just like it's just I have my apartment or whatever, but that may seem like a lonely existence to some degree. But there's like I abide by the Robin Williams principle that loneliness really comes from being surrounded from not just being alone, but being surrounded by people who don't really see you, that you don't connect with, And I'm blessed to have really good friends and family, so I'm all right in that regard. Of course, more the merrier. But I just have so many hobbies and interests that I keep myself occupied. I have a tight schedule, surprisingly, for a single dude. All right. That was a huge rant, huge preamble. But again, this is about getting to know me, kind of a little bit of narcissism there, but it's my channel. Within this context, I can do what I want. My domain. So I bring all this up because, for every subject matter, there's books about it. So I love the joke writing process. So I've got a lot of comedy and comedian books. And not only on the technical side, and I'll link all these below. But books on joke writing theory and joke writing formulas and stuff, like how people write jokes, exercises and stuff like that. I love those. I love systematizing things. So, but I also like listening to David Spade's books. He's one of my favorite comedians. I have a video on my experience and all my thoughts on comedy from the first season, so you can check out who I like and my detailed experience in that video. I listened to Whitney Cummings's book, and Norm Macdonald's book. Norm Macdonald got me into comedy, so I have a special love for him. R.I.P. And basically, my interest in nonfiction flows from my own interests. It's hard to recommend nonfiction, even if you think it's great, to somebody who's not interested at all in the subject. So nonfiction is both easier to recommend in that way and hard to recommend in that way. In the sense that if you're already into it, you're probably already going to find the book. That's the blessing of nonfiction compared to fiction, finding good fiction. I've heard back on comedy, I've heard Steve Martin's Born Standing Up is good, but I haven't gotten to it yet. I have a lot of, and I love audiobooks, and David Spade narrating is fantastic. Same with Norm, and especially since he's passed, and Whitney. So interesting. I like the audio medium. And I use Audible, and I just have a giant backlog. It's even worse than my Steam. It's just insane, my Audible backlog. Van Gogh said that you should learn the rules so that you can break them. And that's how I view most things. I like to learn the basics and the unwritten rules of a subject, and then I can let myself be original and break all the rules. I love that. I also have a passion for narrative structure. Like I want to make a game, specifically a JRPG style game. Of course, I'll have to make probably 100 games before I get to that project to just learn the basics. But there's a great video from Edward Edson. If I can find it, I'll link it below. But it's about the beats that a screenplay needs to hit, like a story needs to hit to be effective. And I think that translates into video games pretty well. So I have a lot of books on screenwriting. Ausgrave Royalty is more than a brand to me. It's a whole lore. There's a universe. There's characters in it. You can see some of my earliest videos where I go through some of that, like what the name means and all that. But it's like a creative impulse that informs all my other endeavors. Screenwriting is one of them. So Edward Edson, man, he's great when it comes to that kind of subject. As far as the astrophysics stuff, I haven't actually listened to Cosmos by Carl Sagan, but I've listened, or I've actually read. I'll use them interchangeably. But with nonfiction, I actually like to read, so because I like to underline. A lot of people will be cringing right now, but dude, it's my book. I'm making it personal. It's my way of communicating with the material, like making a comment, like, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like a conversation. No, I'm not a collector. Screw collecting. Like, I need to get something out of the book, right? Hello? But yeah, read some of Michio Kaku's books, a few by Lawrence Krauss, and some others. I also read the Brian Greene books on string theory. Super dense, but really interesting. I haven't actually looked into any of that stuff in a long time. There's a YouTube channel I like called from John Michael Gauthier. God, I'm so bad right now. I'm blanking on the name of his channel, but I'll link it below. He's my go-to guy for that sort of thing. He has great topics. I also love the YouTube channel Bright Insight. I'll link it below. He got me. Well, I don't know if it was him. Someone got me into like ancient civilizations and stuff like that. Might have been him. But either way, he has great videos. And from him, I learned about Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and John Anthony West. Super fascinating. Great authors, very fascinating stuff. If you are interested in, like, Graham Hancock, I think he said, like, humanity is a species with amnesia because of global catastrophes that rocked and reshaped the Earth's environment. There were actually very old human civilizations that existed at a high level of technology that were completely lost before what we think of as like the reemergence of like the Sumerians. We're talking about way, way old. I don't know much of the details on that, but it's something I've read about casually. And how like the structure, the base of the Sphinx is like way, way older than the other portions of it. And how like there's no hieroglyphics in the original pyramids. Interesting, huh? Anyway, I love all that stuff, and I confess that I love the Zecharia Sitchin stuff. I know he's been debunked, all that. It's kind of like a nonfiction fiction book. I love that stuff. Sorry. It reminds me of Stargate, the movie. As a matter of fact, my favorite movie of all time is The Fifth Element. And Zecharia Sitchin as a character, as an author, as a figure, reminds me of that professor at the beginning. He's like, Aziz, light! Thank you, Aziz. That's much better. Oh, that movie is so fantastic. But he reminds me of this is the most amazing discovery, you know. like that's who Zachariah Sitchin reminds me of. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'm interested in like DMT and like the scientific aspect of like reality alteration via these chemical methods. Not just because like I'm any sort of Joe Rogan wannabe, but I have a strange mind. Like as I said earlier, I have a very promiscuous mind when it comes to ideas. What would a transformative psychedelic experience be like for me? Right? I'm very self-aware, and I've heard people are transformed by it. So I'm just curious, you know. um, so reading my notes here. Um, oh yeah, I'm interested in like drugs used to play a much more like a role in initiatory and transformative processes, like going on vision quests or whatever. Like such a thing has no legitimacy in the modern era, but like there were oracles in like the ancient Greek, like the like in 300 and all that. Like drug usage used to be legitimized in some way, and we've lost that. And there was value there, but what that value was is nebulous to me as an ignorant person on the subject. But I find these ancient rituals and stuff, that's what we talk about on the channel somewhat. Like, what have we lost? I want to know what we've lost. And learning about DMT and and all that, ayahuasca and stuff like that, since it used to be so common and therefore serve the needs of the societies at the time, what was that need that it was serving? I have my theories, but that's something I want to learn more about. And I heard about recently Terrence McKenna. Seems like an interesting guy. I don't know anything about him, but he has a book called Food of the Gods, and I want to read that. And then Rick Strassman's, I've just heard Rick Strassman's DMT, the spirit molecule. Heard a lot about that, and the Carlos Castaneda, going down some rabbit holes there. So, also I have a full background in philosophy. I should have led with that. might contribute to the reason why I'm so diverse in my ideas. That philosophy is like the most fundamental branch of human knowledge. Philosophy encompasses everything we do, we study. How are we studying? Why are we studying? Everything's philosophy. And so I'm used to like exploring a bunch of different realms and tying them together and all that. And I could rant about that forever, but I'll just say right now, the only like philosophy I listen to is Stefan Molyneux first. I've talked about him a lot on the channel before. He's kind of like my very indirect like Yoda figure when it comes to philosophy. I think he's like the smartest man on the planet. I don't listen to him as much anymore just because I have so many other things that I want to do and explore. And he's a workhorse, man. He puts out so much great content. I just can't keep up, you know. But I know he's always there. So, well, not from YouTube, but anyway, that's another story. But I also listen to a lot of Alan Watts. He has amazing lectures on Audible from Alan Watts himself. He narrates them. He has a very hypnotic and appealing voice. He's just extremely entertaining. Alan Watts is great. And I also love Sadhguru. He has a huge YouTube channel, and he has a book called Inner Engineering. He's quite a character. I don't know much about him outside of quick clips in the book, but I enjoy everything I've heard him say. And he seems like a kooky guy. He like does motorcycle rides and stuff, but he's like an Indian mystic kind of thought leader. And he's very giving, but also seems kind of based in terms of like being a capitalist and all that. Like he's savvy. So I find him a fascinating character. Also, something I'm interested in is like war history or war theory. Like I want to read, like I've read part of On War by Karl von Clausewitz. And I want to read Thucydides and like the ancient books on history and warfare. Those really appeal to me. And oh yeah, speaking of history, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon. Dude, guys, that is the most well-written material I've ever read. Period. Just he writes, the writing is like intellectually so satisfying. It's so literary and amazing and brilliant and intuitive, but also, and it's very complex, but it's easy to understand. Those are the best writers that are conveying complex topics in very simple writing. But simple but polished AF, man. Edward Gibbon, I just love listening to the prose. And again, I do Audible. I have all the volumes on Audible. I've only listened to like one or two. They're long and they're dense. But I just love listening to the language like ASMR style. I also like Cicero by Anthony Everett. To me, that was like a horror book. The way he portrayed it, very entertaining. The young, soon-to-be like the Caesar we all know, the great dictator. He's like on his rise in Cicero's day, and sort of like he reminds me of Char Aznable from the Gundam universe. Like he's a giant pivotal figure in history, like Caesar, and yet Cicero's from like a figure in that era, but watching the events of Char Aznable unfold, you know. And Char Aznable, of course, is a complete sociopath. And anyway, it's very interesting. Anyway, I want to read The Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn, not just because of Jordan Peterson, but it's just, I've heard it's a great encapsulation of that particular horrific moment in human history. I also enjoy the David McCullough books on United States history. Yes, they're probably a bit romantic, but he writes with a great narrative style. He did recently pass, R.I.P., and he seemed like a really great guy. There's a great book on Genghis Khan that I enjoyed, Making of the Modern World by Jack Weatherford. Highly recommended. Another great kind of narrative style. I want to read Plutarch's Lives as well. I really enjoyed Iron John from Robert Bly. Again, I'll probably cover that in the Archetypal series. Fantastic book. I love fairy tales and like the analysis of fairy tales because it informs. It's a very it's like Aesop's fables. It's like a micro narrative, and you can learn a lot from narratives. There's the catharsis even in that little bit. So again, Iron John is about unpacking one of those fairy tales and applying it to a sort of archetypal perspective. I'm also really interested getting into William Blake. He's kind of the unofficial mascot of archetypal psychology in terms of poetry. I read about his life. I'll link a video down below. That was really good. Seemed like a really interesting dude, and he has his own lore. It's like Cthulhu or something, but it's really cool. I don't know. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet, but I already have the book ready and waiting for me. Next is probably one of my favorite nonfiction books is Anti-Fragile by Nicholas Nassim Taleb. Great for systems theory. Can't recommend it enough. The writing of Thomas Sowell and Ayn Rand and the Austrian economist Ludwig von Mises. Great. They're all well written, really cool stuff. We're out of time. I could go on and on. Let me know in the comments below. I want to get this conversation started. What do y'all like? I'm always open to recommendations. Let me know what y'all thought of the video. Really good talking with y'all. Have a good one. See y'all in the next one. Bye-bye.